As the things stand today, 60 countries, mostly in Africa, mostly working in the health sector, would not be able to achieve the MDGs by 2015. It is one more promise broken if we don't do something about it. It is once more credibility lost. And I've gotten a sense of anxiety in the room about 2015 coming so close. And what I would urge towards the end of the day, that this anxiety should convert into an outrage. It is unacceptable in this day and age where the science is available, where the resources are there. You know, you go to any meeting, any program, anything in the world, and you ask what is your problem, and the answer is, oh, we don't have money, we don't have staff, we need more transport, we need 4 more cars. That's the usual answer. The fact of the matter is that someone needs to challenge this. If we look at maternal antenatal checkup, 90% in Uganda, 90% of pregnant women go for the health checkup once. 40% go 3 times or more. Is putting more money and making more health centers or hiring more people the issue? Or the issue is, are these 90% who actually go for the first contact really do get the value for that contact? Because the question is not getting them there, they're going there. If we offer the value of that contact, they will come back again. And only 40% get that. Same thing is with immunization. 80 to 90% of children get the first dose of vaccine, and only 40 to 50 get the 3rd dose of the vaccine. It is not about expansion of services. In some cases, in some countries, that would be the case. But if you take on a broader scale, the services are there, the science is there. Yes, you can always improve upon it. But today, for the results that we want, the science exists, the political commitment has been repeated again and again. We need to revisit some of the assumptions that we are working on. 70% of under 5 mortality in most of the African countries are 3 diseases: pneumonia, malaria, diarrhea. Very simple diseases, can be managed at the community level, do not require big hospitals, do not require big infrastructure, commonest of the diseases. If you look at maternal deaths, 60 to 70% of the maternal deaths happen because of 3 reasons. 1, because there is an obstructed labor, which means a cesarean section is required, or there is hemorrhage, which means blood transfusion is required, or there is infection, which means antibiotics are needed. Now, you can expand services in the next 4 years. You are not going to get the health staff. 80% of the health budget is going in recurring expenses. There is no money for expansion. There is no money for capitalization. So then we can talk about, okay, 15 years from now, we will achieve this. And my argument is, no, it can be achieved now. It must be achieved now. The challenges that we face today in the health sector have very little to do with the knowledge of health. Yes, health education and improving the skills of the worker is important, but most of these challenges have to do with logistics and delay in moving information and moving the focus from information management systems, which actually do what they say, they manage information, to information for management systems, where what are those 3 or 4 critical pieces of information that as a manager I need now, real time, so that I can act on them and make a difference. And this is the challenge, and we need to start looking at some of these issues. And that is what brings me to this whole idea of the great sector of communication and technology that we are all talking about e-learning, but at the same time, e-information systems, and how can we use the cell phones. 500 million cell phones in Uganda, in Africa, more than US and Canada put together. In fact, the West is learning about different services about cell phone from Africa. And therefore, We are on the cutting edge, and there is no reason why we can't exploit this cutting edge. It's going to be about 800 million by 2015 in a population of 1 billion. I mean, it gives us the penetration, it gives us a reach. I have never looked at as a cell phone as a talking machine. Talk is cheap. I mean, in Uganda, you pay one shilling for 1 second. And the way the competition is going, I mean, people will actually pay you to talk. So that's not a business model. I have always seen cell phone as a substitute for transport. Cash transfers. You don't have to go to the bank anymore. The alerts that you get on your phone that tell you this is the market price of motokas today, or of meat today, or fish today. You don't have to go to the market to find out what is the price so that you can have a better negotiation with the middleman who's coming and buying. We talked about the library. There is no need to go to the library because the library comes to you. So that's one aspect of phone. I've always looked at phones as a personal advisor and as a personal educator. In Afghanistan, imagine girls who cannot step out of the house can actually study and learn using a cell phone in the privacy of their house. You can have detailed advisory conversations on very, very personal and private issues using a cell phone in the privacy of that person's house if the privacy and security is granted of the network system. I have seen, and that's where the whole e-education, e-learning aspect, continued learning aspect of health worker, community health worker comes into play. I have looked at a cell phone as a bridge between those who have the internet and the fiber optic connection and the desktops and those who don't. I've always seen it as a bridge. And in Africa, where the fiber optic cable is not reaching most of the part of the country, the cell phone is. And for me, this is a great opportunity to use. I've also seen the cell phones as a way of cutting delays. And you've heard examples of that. How can small bits of information that Richard requires is available to him so that he can actually act and decide? How can he work out the logistics? How can he work out how much drugs need to go where? And that's a place how I see cell phone. I also see cell phones as a tool for transparency, accountability, and citizenship, and strengthening democracy. Imagine with 500,000 cell phone users in the world, if we have a system whereby we send one SMS message saying, can you tell us if the water point in your village is working today or not? You would get an Africa-wide picture in no time where you could actually take that conversation, aggregate that information, take to the member of parliament immediately as an alert saying, do you realize in your constituency today, 60% of the water points are not working? Imagine what would happen in the parliament. You can take that aggregated information, you can have it on a television show, on newspapers, and actually that one piece of information that starts from a village by a person who up till now thought that I don't matter. You made that person aware of what that person's entitlement is. You've engaged that person in monitoring that entitlement. You've actually given feedback to that person how that can work for that person or how it can be addressed. But at the same time, you've taken that one word up, aggregated it into a policy dialogue so that national policies are designed to respond to an ordinary person's voice. And you just create citizenship out of that. You create democracy, you create transparency and accountability. So I've seen cell phones in that role. And I've also seen cell phones, and I've always considered cell phones as a micro-enterprise within themselves. How many of us have these huge stacks of registers that never make it to any person who needs that information? You can actually have cell phone users sitting in these health centers, actually doing microdata entry and getting paid for that work. I mean, certainly you will see people actually want to buy cell phones because they can make money out of it. So I've never seen cell phone as a talking machine. I've seen them in many different ways. And you've heard examples today from different speakers of how they have used, in one or the other project, the cell phones in those ways. Just to come to Uganda, and there were some questions about the business model and stuff like that. Let me give you an example of the birth registration system and the work that we did with the government and the private sector. We went to this cell phone service provider, and we said, here is a problem. We have a volume if you can find a solution. Volume being there are 1.4 million births that happen in this country. Someone has to notify that birth, someone has to verify that birth, and someone has to approve that, yes, the birth certificate can be issued to this person. 1.4 million times 3 is 4.2 million SMS messages. Even if 60% of the people use this method to register and get a birth certificate, you're still talking about 2 to 3 million SMS messages alone in 1 year. But at the same time, people are actually learning how to use SMS, and when they're using SMS for one purpose and they're getting a response to that, they would start using it for other purposes. And the cell phone company then came, designed a whole product based on what the government said, this is how our system works. They put in their technical know-how, they put in their programmers. They offered, because of the volume, they offered a much, much lower rate than anyone else. And then they also then said, okay, can we use these people that you are enrolling as notifiers of information or as you reporters? We also have right now 18,500 people who have registered themselves on the cell phone to become a part of this whole exercise of reporting whether the water point is working or not, or whether the teacher is in the classroom today or not, whether the school got the textbooks or not, all those kinds of information. And they said, hey, these people actually could become our certified money transfer agents for villages where there is no money transfer facility. And that means commission, that means talk time, that means improved services for them. So they actually developed the whole solution. They offered very, very low prices. I think the price of the whole birth registration process is 1 cent per birth registered and birth certificate delivered. That's the kind of price we're talking about. And as more services come in, this would even become cheaper and cheaper. And ultimately, I'm sure that they will make so much business out of these people that this service would be just a public good service that they would offer. The other thing is, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, is this whole business of pilots. The amount of time and energy that is spent and the investment that is made in making a good pilot, if it is not designed from the very beginning as a national system that you are testing in a small area, it always ends up as being a pilot and never replicable. And Uganda, if you come, every 5 steps there is a graveyard with successful pilots buried in them. I mean, right now, I was looking at mHealth pilots. There's 60 mHealth pilots going on today. And the problem is that everyone has done something good, but they've actually often duplicated the resources, made systems that only work on one phone or one system or in one place, and then they go to the government and say replicate. And it's a good idea, but it's just impossible to replicate it. No two programs talk to each other. The cell phone standards are not fixed. The operating system standards are not fixed. And the government is almost in a state of impossible, in an impossible state to implement it. And so are the cell phone service providers. And so the approach that we have to take is right from the very beginning. Think national. Test it out in a small area, involve the service providers and the government and possible donors right from stage 1 when you're conceptualizing it. Don't do a pilot, test it out and say, now this is successful after 2 years of work, and then take it to the government, now you replicate it. It has